Hi everybody, this is a demonstration of a DCS script that I've written, and it's about being able to deploy Special Forces troops out onto the ground using AI helicopters. Therefore you can deploy helicopters in your mission without always having to fly them yourself. It adds to the immersion and it's a little bit of fun as well. So we can deploy up to 5 different Special Forces teams anywhere on the map that we choose. In order to spawn the mission, we use the map markers. So for ease of use and for save time, I'm going to deploy them relatively close. So if we drop a map marker down, and in the text box we type LZ1 and then click outside of it and then just close it down, we can see that a helicopter has spawned on one of the pads not too far away. And we'll repeat that a couple more times. Call this one LZ2, and a third one we'll call it LZ3. And we can now see that we've got 3 helicopters sitting on the pad waiting to be deployed. So if I click on one of these helicopters and just go F2, and if I pan round, we should see there's 2, there's the third one. So the helicopters currently start cold, they'll spin up, get up to speed, and then they will launch. You can actually within the script, or not even within the script, within the mission editor, change to start from hot, but you do have to be careful with them being AI. Sometimes they can take off hot and go straight into a building. It's far more reliable to start them off cold. However, the trade-off there is it's quite a lot slower for things to get working. But in a proper mission, as opposed to just testing it and demonstrating it, that doesn't really matter, because you'll just set the task and leave to relatively close in time. So if I pan round, this one goes off on its merry way, and there we go, we can see the second one taking off. And in just a second we should see the third one taking off from the pad. There it goes. So we've now got 3 helicopters, all AI, taken off and deploying out to where the relevant markers were placed. Because they are relatively close by, I'll just leave it running full time in normal time. And as we can see, one of the helos is actually very close to its location already, which is LZ3, which is over up to the top of the map. The one which we're following just got a little bit further to go, so if I just pan around we'll follow it in. As you can see, they will stay quite low to the ground and travel at about 100 knots. Being AI, they do have a little bit of a mind of their own, and sometimes they can go high, sometimes they can go low, sometimes they'll even skid across the ground, but that's actually beyond my control. So as we can see now, we're approaching the landing zone. It's worth mentioning that with them being AI as well, whenever you do set a landing zone from the F10 map via the map markers, try and find somewhere as level as possible. All that text is from other scripts which are running on my system at the moment. As we can see, it's now starting to descend. They can do some weird things, they can stand on their tails when they come into land, but normally they're quite good. They'll find a nice flat area, they'll hover above it, and then they'll descend and land. There we go. Once wheels are down, there we can see a message in the background that one of the other helicopters is deployed and is now on its return. After a few seconds, the troops will be deployed. There we go, so they're deployed out in front of the helicopter, and once they're deployed the helicopter will take off and start its return trip back to Akrotiri, which is the base which we're flying out of in Cyprus. Are limitations of DCS. With them being on a flight path, they do this big loop around before they actually go and find a pad to land on. But we can see one of them is already back, landed on the pad. This one here will follow on close behind, and you can see the pad directly in front of it. And once each of the helicopters touches down in turn, they'll start to spool down and they will eventually stop. If you leave them on the pads, they will eventually despawn. However, if you go up to the SF missions, you can go to missions and you can click on despawn. We're on the deployment and we can despawn all. The other things which are able to be done, let me just zoom out a little bit. If we go to the F10 menu and click on other, first of all we can see the markers on the ground next to where we've actually deployed troops. These will automatically appear, and if you click on the show all, they will actually appear on the map as well, and after a short period of time they'll disappear. Or you can click on them. Even if you click delete, after a couple of seconds they will appear back. So you've always got a reference to where the troops are on the ground, because you can't actually name the individual items which are actually created when they're spawned. But if we go up to the SF missions and we go to commander status, so having a quick look at this, we can see that we've now got 3 teams deployed out onto the ground: LZ1, LZ2, LZ3. At the moment they've got a limit around them where anything within 5 kilometers they will automatically detect and report back what it is within, and the threat levels. So as we can see down here, each of them have required 4 targets, which are the 4 red ones you see at the top of the map, and we've got a threat level indicator here which changes in bars and reports whether it's low, medium or high. In addition to that, if we go back to SF missions, we can go to SF teams. We might just need to do a quick refresh. Dynamic menus aren't the best in DCS, and if you do use them it can have different undesired effects, so I added in the refresh. So if we go back into SF missions, go to SF teams, we can see that we've now got 3 teams deployed: SF1, SF2, SF3. They're active and each of them have discovered 4 targets. If we take one at random, we can click on threats. Threats will tell us what the threat actually is in relation to the vehicle and how far it is away from the team itself. If we go to SF teams again, go to SF2, lays closest, if we click on that, the JTAC laser becomes active on a default code of 1688, so that will allow the team to paint the closest target to them, so any attack helicopter with a laser guided missile can lock onto that code and destroy that enemy. We've got stop lasing, that speaks to itself. If we want to extract the troops, we can hit extract. If we're actually in the process of running troops in and we actually want to abort the insertion, we just click on the button. If I go back to the previous menus, we've also got team status. If we click on team status, we can see more detail. We can see it's deployed active. There are 4 targets, and we can also see the distance and bearing from each one. It will also tell us the situation of the helicopters. But always remember, the distance and bearings is always relative to the troops on the ground, not to you playing in the helicopter. As you can see, the helicopters have despawned automatically. However, if we go into mission, we've got a couple more bits and pieces here. Deployment info, that just gives you a quick on-screen text to tell you how to deploy the troops, i.e. F10 map marker, LZ1 to LZ5, and the troops will just spawn. Another instance of the refresh, just to refresh the menus so they display correctly. Abort deployment, again, I'll probably actually remove that because we've actually duplicated it. Extract all, so depending on how many troops you've got out onto the ground, if you hit extract all, it will automatically spawn the necessary amount of helicopters for all the troops on the ground and start the extraction process. And finally, we've got despawn. If you've done a deployment or a recovery and you want to, and it's completed and the helicopters are back on the pad, if you want to get rid of them rather than just sitting there, you can hit deploy or recovery, select any particular one individually or despawn all, and it will actually remove everything from the map. The teams will remain, just the helicopters will despawn. So if we go back to the previous mention, so we've done the deployment phase. So if we want to extract, if we hit extract all, we'll see 3 helicopters appear on the map. So if we hit extract all, and I'll zoom in, we can see the 3 helicopters on the pad. I will select one, and exactly as what we saw before, we can see all of them. You'll get this message on the screen, SF recovery inbound, when it's within 5 kilometers of the troops. Because we only deploy the troops a few meters away, or a few hundred meters away, that message automatically appears. There's no limit on how far you can actually deploy the troops. The limit of the range is dependent on the helicopter's fuel capabilities. So there we can see, if I just zoom out a touch, we can see all 3 helicopters sitting on the pad, ready to take off, or ready to start engines, take off and go to. And there we go, because they extracted all at the same time, they all take off together. One of them's going to try and fly into a lamppost. It will hover there. As we can see, all 3 of them are now all taken off, and they will all go about their own merry way and go and pick up their relative troops. So we'll follow this one, which is the one which we followed on the way out. And you see he's flying a little bit too low. So the other thing which will happen is, as it comes to the targets, when it gets to 1 kilometre away, it will automatically pop a blue smoke to give you some indication that the helicopter's inbound. And you might just notice here, it will also fire a flare. So it will actually fire 2 flares. You'll get a flare being deployed at 1 kilometre when the smoke appears for night operations, and when you get within 200 metres of the targets, or not the targets, the troops that you actually want to pick up, they'll fire another flare. So you actually get visual warnings if you're flying at night, or if it's dusk, dawn, or the weather's really, really bad. And we should see the second flare fire in just a second. There we go, there's the other flare. So the helicopter will land, and after a few seconds we'll extract the troops. If you're a combined arms user, you can actually go onto the map, select the soldiers which you've deployed, and actually move them. They will move wherever you want to on the map. The F10 marker will actually follow them as well, and it makes no difference for the extraction helicopter whether they've been moved or not. It will still be able to detect where those troops are and be able to go in and extract them. Just remember that the AI helicopters need relatively flat, an area of flat ground in order to land. They're not going to be doing pinnacle landings or anything weird like that. They're weird enough in their own right without having to try, without adding to the confusion. And as you can see, one of the other teams has already been recovered, and you get the message on the screen. The one we're watching at the moment, helicopter's about to land, and there's the other team which has been recovered. You can see the helicopter has landed right next to the troops, and after a few seconds the troops will jump onto the helicopter. Not as dynamic as perhaps I'd hoped, but they'll just despawn as if they're in the helicopter. There we go. Helicopter detects this, will take off and start to make its way back to base. There we go. So one of the helicopters has already landed, and pretty much as in reverse of what happened in deployment, the helicopters make their way back to the pad. They'll land, they'll shut down, and then after a period of time they will actually despawn from the map. But just like the deployment phase, if you want to, if you get to this point and you actually want to clear them off the map, you can go to other SF missions, despawn, and because it's on the recovery phase, we hit recovery and then we can despawn them. Also worth mentioning as well, if we go to commander status, we can now see, now that they've been extracted, we can see that they're now not deployed. And much the same as we saw before, if we actually go to the troops menu, the SF teams, we can see that they're still showing there. So we hit a refresh, other SF missions, SF teams, and we can see that they're now not deployed. But, and show you the final one, despawn, recovery. We've got two there, the other one's all flying around somewhere on its way back in. We can just spawn all, and they've gone. Well, I hope you enjoyed the mission. It will be available on DCS uploads, or I'll upload it for your download. Hope you enjoy it. I look forward to any comments you may have. Please recommend anything that you like, anything that doesn't work, or any changes that you may like. I may be able to implement them into future builds.